Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about a story that's both heartbreaking and incredibly powerful, the South Auckland Massacre of 1992, and a new podcast that's bringing this tragic event back into the spotlight. If you're someone who loves true crime, history, or just wants to learn more about New Zealand's darker chapters, this is one you don't want to miss. Brian Schlaepfer, a 64-year-old man from South Auckland, carried out one of the most brutal and tragic family massacres in New Zealand's history. He shot or stabbed 6 members of his family to death at their farm. That includes his wife, Jocelyn, and his 3 sons, Peter, Carl, and Daryl. He also killed Peter's wife, Hazel, and their 11-year-old son, Aaron. The only survivor was his 9-year-old granddaughter, Linda. She hid in a wardrobe and later gave crucial information to the police during the investigation. The massacre started after a domestic argument and ended with Brian taking his own life. This case is still considered one of New Zealand's worst family tragedies. I know a lot of you are thinking, how did this story come back into the public eye? Well, the answer is a new podcast called A Moment in Crime. This podcast has been making waves in the true crime world, and it's hosted by senior journalist Anna Liesk. In this particular episode, she dives deep into the Schlaepfer case, and she also reveals the harrowing 111 call that Linda made to the police that day. The call was made to Constable Jeff Stuck. This is a moment that's both chilling and incredibly important, as it shows how one child's courage helped bring justice to a family that had been torn apart. She's a seasoned journalist who's been with the Herald since 2008. She has 20 years of experience in crime and justice reporting, and she's covered some of the most high-profile cases in New Zealand. From the murders of Grace Mullane, Scott Guy, and Austin Hemmings to the Christchurch mosque attack and the Heavenly Creatures case, she's been there. Her podcast, A Moment in Crime, has covered a lot of these stories, giving listeners an in-depth look into the lives of victims, the people involved, and the legal processes that followed. The podcast did a 3-part special on the case of James Wallace, a rich lister and philanthropist who was convicted of sexually assaulting 3 men. He was jailed and had his knighthood stripped. That's another case that shows how the podcast is not just limited to murders, but also covers other serious crimes that have had a big impact on society. Marking the 30th anniversary of the event, the Bain family murders were one of the most shocking and tragic cases in New Zealand's history. The podcast gave a fresh perspective on the case, reflecting on the loss of life and the legal saga that followed. It was a powerful reminder of how important it is to remember these events and the people who were affected by them, which is an incredible achievement. That's a lot of people who are tuning in to listen to these stories, and it shows the demand for true crime content. The podcast is available on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes are released monthly, so there's always something new to listen to. The podcast has produced over 55 episodes, and it's been downloaded over 1 million times. The reach is even more impressive, with listeners in over 170 countries. That's a testament to the quality of the content and the way Anna Liesk tells these stories. It was also nominated for Best True Crime Podcast at the 2024 Radio and Podcast Awards, and I think that's a well-deserved recognition for the work she's done. I want to take a moment to talk about the specific episode on the South Auckland Massacre. If you're someone who's ever wondered what it's like to be in the middle of a family tragedy like this, or if you're just curious about the details of the case, this episode is a must-listen. Anna Liesk does an amazing job of breaking down the events of that day, and she also gives listeners an inside look at the 1111 call that Linda made. It's a powerful moment and one that will stay with you long after the episode ends. What did the legal system do to address this case? And what has been the impact on Linda and the rest of the Schlaepfer family? Anna Liesk covers all of these questions, giving a comprehensive view of the case and its lasting effects, not just for the story itself, but also for the way it's told. Anna Liesk is a journalist who knows how to make these complex cases accessible and engaging. She's not just reading from a script, she's telling a story that's both heartbreaking and important. If you've ever been moved by a true crime podcast, or if you've ever wanted to hear more about the work of journalists like Anna Liesk, then this is a podcast you should definitely check out. The South Auckland Massacre is a story that should never be forgotten. The courage of Linda Schlaepfer, the tragedy of the Schlaepfer family, and the work of Anna Liesk in bringing this story back to the public eye are all things that deserve our attention. The podcast, A Moment in Crime, is doing an incredible job of covering these stories, and I can't recommend it enough. So if you haven't listened to it yet, I encourage you to do so. It's available on all the major podcast platforms, and it's definitely worth your time, and I hope this has given you a better understanding of the podcast and the story it covers. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to share them. I'd love to hear what you think about this episode and the podcast in general. Stay tuned for more updates, and until next time, keep listening to the stories that matter.